who do you think would have been a better matchup for Joe? What's good, everyone? It's your man G Ness, back with another Garage Talk. And let's talk Verzuz, let's talk Donell Jones, let's talk Joe. I've been looking forward to it since the moment that they announced it. And, you know, being a songwriter, these two gentlemen are certainly artists who have influenced my own pen. I literally own both of their entire catalogs, so I'm a huge fan. They brought the 90s nostalgia, and, you know, I thought it was one of my favorite Verzuz to date. I certainly like I think I like the R&B Verzuz probably more than I like the hip hop Verzuz, because we really just have our opportunity to celebrate them as opposed to comparing them as much, even though, it still has the competitive aspect of it, but Verzuz is still more intended to be a celebration, reminder of how great these artists are that we're getting to see perform again, and reminded of how great their catalogs are, how extensive they are, how outstanding their penmanship is. And so we saw that on full display. Now, I gotta say this, when I first heard that matchup, I didn't think it was a good matchup. And I was proven right, because as great as Donell Jones is, as fantastic as his music is, I love his music, I own all of his music, there's levels to this. And I think people have forgotten over time how phenomenal Joe really is. And I've said this before in other conversations, where when you look at the artists from that era, if you're not mentioning R. Kelly or Babyface, I don't think there's anybody from that era of singers that can compete with Joe in a Verzuz. Now, the only one that comes to my mind in that era would be Tank. And he came a little bit later, I think, in the 90s. Joe was, I think 1993 is when he came out. Then you had, Babyface was 86. And I think R. Kelly was like 90, 91-ish, somewhere around there. So that's all same era. Babyface was ending one era and coming into the 90s, and is more predominantly known for his writing in the 90s, early 2000s. Joe is 90s, early 2000s. Tank, same 90s, early 2000s, up to now. They're all still writing, they're all still doing their thing, but that was kind of that peak era for them. And when I look at all the artists from that time, I'm like, people forgot. As soon as I heard Joe was on the Verzuz, I was like, this is going to be a rough day for Donell. And it proved to be that. Vocally, Joe is just simply on another level. It was effortless. He's got the powerful runs. He's got the harmonies. He's got the soul and gospel, vibes, the romantic vibes. He's talking about romance. He's doing the pleading, the begging, the real crooner type stuff, and then you got someone like Donell, who's just kind of, laid back, mid-range, limited vocal range, but, he just stays in his pocket. And, his tracks are a little more about, infidelity and temptation and, just complexities and insecurities in relationships, so topic-wise, they're very different. Sonically, they're very different. Vocally, they're very different. So I did not see this as an ideal matchup for Donell. Now, I seen on the Breakfast Club where you had Charlemagne was like, I think Ginuwine would have been a better matchup for Joe. And I was like, no, he wouldn't. Like, Ginuwine got bangers, he got hits. All these guys that you can name got bangers and hits. Joe's a different beast, and he proved that on that stage. Ginuwine don't want nothing with Joe. None of these cats want, unless you are mentioning R. Kelly or Babyface, you better put some respect on, Joseph Louis Thomas's name, okay? Joe's that dude. I mean, Joe really is that dude. He came in and, that was a massacre. That was 50 Cent's second album. That was a massacre that he put on Donell. I mean, it wasn't even fair, and I don't want to slight Donell. I'm simply bigging up Joe. He's just on a whole nother level. And, it was amazing to see, again, to see him on there. I was glad because I feel like Joe finally really got his flowers and reminded people who he really is. So thinking about that, like, I want to know from you guys, who do you think could have been a better matchup for Joe? Because it obviously wasn't Donell, unfortunately. Donell, I love you. Don't hate me for it, but we saw what happened. We seeing all the memes and all that stuff. But who would be the artist that you would put to be in a versus against Joe that would have gave Joe a better fight, a better go at it? Where it might have been a 50-50 split or something like that. I'm saying it's probably Tank, but, and from that era, obviously, there's some other great writers. You got the Neos and all that, but he's not really that same era. So that, you could match them up. I would actually probably still take Joe, even though Neo's probably wrote some bigger records and stuff, but Neo can't mess with Joe vocally, so there is the on-stage part of the verses. So it's like, we all know the records, but you still got to be able to perform them on a high level to actually get the W when it's all said and done. But yeah, let me know who you think would have gave Joe a better run. And, let me know what you thought about the verses, because this is definitely one of my favorite topics to discuss, G-Ness music. I try to emphasize the music aspect a little bit more while I'm doing culture pilots and my, I'm doing my cigar stuff and all that. But the music is really my number one thing. Songwriter, I'm currently writing for somebody. I can't, really throw that out there yet, but let me know what you think. I'd like to have a music conversation with you. So, is it Tank? Is it Ginuwine? Is it somebody else? Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, and let's have a music discussion. And as always, enjoy the conversation.